Yeah, July, a huge month on the Scrabble calendar. So many cool events. And I think our players are probably,
Ready
Jackson
to
and
go.
Josh are probably gearing up for those same events and probably view this as a great test. If they can play their top level Scrabble against each other, then they're going to be well positioned to take on anybody else that shows up to those events. These two will clearly be the favorites. So we got game 4 ready to get started here. I believe it is Jackson going first in this game. And looking to, can Jackson win his third straight and really take a commanding advantage in the series? A lot will depend on these first few draws. We like to see probe. Oh, okay. Things were looking okay. And then went a little bit south with the BGP combo, Stefan.
No B group. He's going to have to regroup, not B group.
Looks like maybe Brogue is going to be the choice for him. That looks pretty good.
There's another option would be to do what Jackson just set up on his rack and keep PE instead of just P.
Yeah, that looks even better.
I think that looks better. Yeah, he's keeping that E. You want to keep that E. Yeah, and I'm laughing here because are you looking at what Josh has set up on his rack?
No, did he?
He had set up ballsily in a ballsy manner.
I didn't.
And it would have been pretty ballsy to make that play.
Ballsily. I mean, that's a word like formation. I don't know if I want to go so far as to call it a word, but it looks kind of like one. Instead, just playing Billy, which makes total sense. That's a very normal move, getting rid of the 2 of the 3 L's on his rack, the Y, scoring decently 20 points. Josh has an S, so he's going to be very happy that he now has a 7-letter word in the form of analysis that will play here in a way that I would be hard-pressed to see Jackson blocking. Yeah, it's actually surprisingly difficult. A lot of the plays that clean the rack immediately, such as epilogue, are very foolish in this situation. The current board with just Billy and Berg on it has very little scoring power available to either player. So by playing epilogue or something like goalie or one of these other plays that put a letter in the triple lane, that just makes your opponent's next move so much easier. So he'll be looking for something a little safer than that. Pelage. Okay. So this is a way at least of scoring a few points and not opening anything. It actually scores a surprisingly good number of points here, 19.
It scores as much as anything else is going to score on this board.
Josh plays a very nice bingo through the open P of Capellans. That scores 74. Anlis's in this spot scores 70. The nice thing about this is maybe it's kind of deceptively not that easy to do much with this triple. The last 2 letters being consonants makes it a little harder to overlap, and it makes it impossible to put a high-scoring letter in that spot.
I guess the difference here, Will, might be creating a bunch of floaters with by hooking Borg, creating a lot of 8-letter bingo lanes.
Yeah, you're totally right about that, Stefan. That has to have been his main consideration. A play right here, putting all of these really nice bingo tiles. They're 2 A's, of course, so you're only getting the benefit of the 1A, probably this one. But N, L, C, these are all very good bingo tiles. And any 8-letter word that Jackson would have through any of these tiles, look at all the open space you would have. But a beautiful response to Josh's play here of Danio with 5 overlaps. That is absolutely, by far, Jackson's best play.
And that's the risk. I mean, there was some risk, we said. Well, that's a risk without any high-scoring tile coming into play. He just happened to have a 5-letter word that fit perfectly and scored as much as it did.
But Josh has a clunky looking rack, but he actually has a 7-letter word on it of linuron. So that plays alongside Pelage. And I just always get a little agita, Stefan, because I feel like if he saw linuron it would be on the board by now, unless he's thinking, am I missing an ing word or something like that? Like, to me, my instinct is if you see Linearon, you kind of instantly know this is the only spot you're bingoing on this turn and you're playing it. But Josh hasn't played anything for a few seconds now. Oh man, we're gonna see a huge miss. Oh, that's a huge, huge miss.
Wow.
So that is the second best play here, Lion for 17 points. But being able to get off of this rack immediately, those really unappealing, not that synergistic low point tiles, and turn them into a 66-point bingo and move on with the game, it's so much better than any other play here. So that is, I think Josh is going to be a little sick when he realizes that post game. Immediately, Vomito coming down. Jackson wasting no time playing that.
It's Vomito.
Vomito. Okay, yeah, I gave it a little flair that it didn't need. Sorry about that. Vomito. Okay,
let's go with the straight vomit.
Yeah. Oh, Dratted finding its way onto to Jackson's rack now too. So it seems to me like there's nothing Josh will ever do on the right side of the board here. Pretty much any play he's going to make is going to be in this area, and then we're going to see Dratted go down. But let's see if Josh can rebound.
Not a lot of great options.
It's brutal because your tiles are quite good, and you are so close to ing plays. In a vacuum, if I was playing a computer engine, I would consider playing just the U somewhere because it's probably very strong in terms of how often you get a bingo down. The problem is you're not playing a computer engine, you're playing a flesh and blood human in Jackson.
And your options you can't even disguise it here, Will. It's basically playing UM or MU in Vomito. There's really nowhere else to play.
Yeah.
So like there's literally nowhere else to play. You're telling your opponent, I'm gonna bingo, whether there's nothing you can stop me. You can't stop me from doing it.
Okay, Josh has decided Ulva is a decent option. It keeps the ing in play, scores a few more points, opens him up to a 3-tile draw instead of just the 1, but it doesn't really tell Jackson quite as much.
Right.
So yeah, seems all right.
And doesn't leaves that M and the I lanes open for 8s, creates a new bingo lane to the left of the A.
Yeah, a lot of good things with this play,
for
sure. So it's back to Jackson, and we are now, I guess Jackson has to think of, is this oh man, this could be a really interesting
Z setup.
So that's the first thought. If you're Jackson playing against Josh, Josh is well known setting up a really powerful tile in a way that I sort of don't detect, but Jackson is way too smart to fall into the same traps.
But Jackson's holding 2 tiles right now.
Wow. Interesting. Tad.
So have they both missed bingos, or has Jackson made a strategic decision to pass up a bingo to address the potential ZA spot?
That actually is fascinating. If you really, really, really put Josh on having a Z, is it possible that playing Tad is better? My gut says no. I'm going to guess that was just not thinking that drat is a verb. And I think that's a reasonable, Stefan, I think that would be a reasonable conclusion.
Absolutely a reasonable conclusion. I mean, as we have said, even the best players doubt themselves. He may have seen dratted, he may have seen it immediately and just questioned himself slightly. And, you might say, wait, the dude that played Firebowl, what was it? Blowfire? Fire blow? I don't remember. Yeah. Fire blow is gonna doubt himself about a 7-letter word that contains only high frequency tiles. That would be surprising to me, but it absolutely happens.
Yeah, it does. And look at this.
Look at
This
this.
is a shocker. If I'm Jackson, I'm surprised by this. Oh, but now he has de-aerate.
He's
Okay,
got de-aerate.
I was going to say that
Yeah.
would be
Yeah. Yeah.
devastating, but de-aerate is going to still fit through this E. Okay, never
There's the
mind. And you
Z.
can see
There's the Z.
there it is. Love it when a plan comes together, of course. Really interesting play of peeing. It thematically, Josh was close to a bingo with his tiles, but I think he knew the board was not conducive to him getting one down. And yeah, he's kind of shaking his head like, oh God, how is this game proceeding in this way?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's tough. But he's still very much in this. He's not even down by that much.
No.
So
No, it'll effectively be tied after this turn, I think.
Yeah, he can play Yez in this spot for an enormous score. You don't love keeping UU on your rack, but for 59 points,
60 points, yeah.
I'll do a lot of things for 60 points, Steph.
Yes. Yeah.
Quote me on that. I'm just kidding. I have standards.
No, 60 points is a lot, though. It's definitely worth considering.
It's true.
There's a calculus to be made there, Will. What do I trade for 60 points?
For sure. But yeah, it is worth saying here that Yez scores really, really well, but also Gauzy is kind of nice too. It doesn't score quite as well, 44 points, but the ERU leave is so much better than GRUU. It's like surprisingly much better. All right, it looks like Josh.
Hard to pass up. That's a 15-point-ish swing.
It is. It's a lot.
It's hard to sacrifice, I think, just mentally. We talked about Nigel and, hey, it scored 15 more points. What else am I going to play? There's that's his philosophy in a lot of cases, right? Yeah. So I think you see that and you recognize like, oh, I'm going to have to work through this UU and it may not work out quickly, but it's worth it.
Harem is, with all those consonants, seems like as good an idea as anything for Jackson.
Definitely creates some volatility underneath it. That's a dangerous lane, but that lane was there anyway with DR8. But Jackson drawing both blanks.
As Fig goes down, keeping the two U's again, that's definitely not. It's definitely not what.
Not ideal.
In any case, this is actually a fun back and forth game. We've seen two bingo misses, which is definitely not something that I had. Oh man, I guess I was going to say on my bingo card.
Just sigh and move on. Well, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, everyone.
Interesting positional thing, particularly for players not at their level. You've got two blanks. You've got the cue. If you have an opportunity to play off the cue and score in the 30-point range, do you burn a blank here? There is an open U on this board, and you can see Jackson setting up quirk. But this is that two blank conundrum for players is often something that's tough to resolve.
Yeah, Jackson playing quirk. So yeah, I was curious if Josh was going to try untrust,
which I just looked. I saw and looked, and it is Collins only.
Yeah, a brutal one, because I feel like that's a kind of a reasonable word, untrust. It's not as messed up as some of the other words in the Collins dictionary. So I could have imagined seeing him try that, and I think that puts Jackson in a little bit of a tough situation. I bet he eventually makes that challenge, but it would be a tough one. So anyway, it was correct in a vacuum for him not to play untrust and risk it.
And right now, Will, Jackson has no playable no 7-letter words at all on that rack, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh. And he's going to play shove, which is
pretty good.
A pretty play. 47 points, leaving D blank. That looks pretty good. Josh playing furs just to cover up that spot makes sense. He has all consonants, and he's drawing close on the scoreboard, but I think Josh has to know that he's in a bit of trouble after shove. And now we're going to see a nice play by Jackson of we that scores 33. It uses up his E, but there are 3 more to draw. And if he gets any one of those 3, we know they're all in the bag. Josh doesn't have any. Yeah, we're going to see biocides or something like that coming down for Jackson.
So here's my question, Will.
Now.
If you're sitting in Josh's shoes, Ox takes out a couple of lanes. Are you maybe thinking, all right, I am assuming he's got the blank. Can I get lucky for a couple of turns and make it impossible for Jackson to use that blank?
That's a great question. It may be the case from Josh's POV that his most realistic pathway to win is actually to block stuff with a play like this that scores well, gets him close on the scoreboard. And if he can prevent Jackson from bingoing with exactly the sort of rack that he has, maybe he draws the J and continues to outscore some way, somehow on his next turn. But he's just going to play bid instead. We'll see. It seems like, Stefan, he's destined to draw really good tiles from the bag, knowing what Josh has.
Yeah.
I didn't even note this spot for Jaw over here, scoring 46.
Yeah.
If Jackson just draws weirdly enough, which I don't necessarily see how he can.
I don't see how either, but that's the hope. If from Josh's POV, knowing what he has on his rack and what he sees in the bag and what he saw Jackson just do, that there are moments in the game. There are turning points in the game. And that's that one mistake that ends up being crucial.
Final score here, Jackson 423 to 352 for Josh. So Jackson with 3 wins in a row, and Josh kind of on the brink. He must be feeling a little bit bruised after a couple of these losses. Could have gone either way. This one, momentum clearly on Jackson's side right now, but I definitely love Josh's chances of righting the ship and continuing to bring his A game going forward. Hopefully he shakes it off.